Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to Fulltime. It is presented by Amazon Prime. As promised, today is our Summer Mailbag episode for you. So with you today is myself, Jillian Sakovits, alongside Tamerra Griffin and Meg Linehan. Hello. Is everybody ready for the burning questions that hit the inbox this summer?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year to be asking questions about the state of, because we're sort of in this coming off of a major thing that we were quasi involved in and related to, but we're still kind of far out from our next big thing. But there were some really good
questions. And by
questions.
big things, you're referring to World Cups.
World Cups. Senior World Cups, because we do have some youngins getting ready to play soon, which we've been asked about, and I appreciate that.
And also now those tournaments might actually happen, so great.
Right. That's the other thing that makes this timing. I mean, I'm glad that all got resolved before this mailbag because this could have been a stressful episode otherwise. But yes, we move.
Yeah. Temporarily resolved inside of the week. Probably some more spice to come. But for now, we're all feeling like we're in a really good place. Last week, we had a little bit of fun while I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, getting ready for the MLS All-Star Game, posing, should we bring all this craziness and chaos to the NWSL, and what would that look like? So I want to say thank you to everybody who answered all of our questions. And we got some really fantastic responses from all of you on your thoughts and feelings around an NWSL All-Star weekend. I think we're all in agreement that that's exactly what it would be. Quote, we got an NWSL All-Star game is an abominable idea. Please bury the idea with the NFL game. And what should happen to all the others? Okay, a combined game is even worse. I love the women's game, and outside the cup, I barely pay attention to the men. The speed and strength of the top men would be too much. Now, you want to have an NWSL All-Star, play the WSL All-Stars, which we threw out there. That's a game I'd be interested in. That's a strong dislike, everybody, for the co-ed idea.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's another way to look at it too. And this person does say that they don't pay much attention to the men's, but you could the speed and strength is one thing, but also you could see a lot more flopping. Like, I feel like it's important for people who mostly focus on women's soccer to see how much men flop on the men's side. So I feel like there's a lot of give and take there. And I saw I believe it was the NWSL during the Men's World Cup. We're doing these, if you're a big fan of Lionel Messi, have you met Rose Lavelle kind of comps? So in that same spirit, I feel like it could be interesting to actually see what those players would be like on the same pitch.
Also, just don't think anyone is ever playing that hard in an all-star game. No one's going to be going full out in an all-star game, especially if it was some sort of co-ed game. And I want to say we got another piece of feedback too that was, I think, at least a little more open to it, right? Of most adult rec leagues are co-ed, so it would be equally cool to see an co-ed all-star game, teams with actual stars in that sport. MLS and NWSL could be trailblazing. The Portland Thorns and Portland Timbers have played 2 games with mixed teams, and they've been tremendous fun for the players and the fans. Both were fundraisers. One was definitely for Ukraine. No one could actually remember what the second one was for, but we're totally unserious, which was part of the fun. Again, I think what we were low-key arguing for with the all-star game of this is an exercise in fun and joy and not necessarily an exercise in soccer. So
yeah, fun is the point. But wherever you fell on that spectrum, whatever your opinions are, however strong, like our first commenter, or, diluted, we appreciate the fact that you even engaged with the question. And definitely we appreciate everyone who took time to DM us, email us, carrier pigeon, however you sent in the questions. I'm not even privy to all the ways. But thank you so much. And the doors are not closed beyond this mailbag episode. Feel free always to reach out to us on email, fulltime@theathletic.com. We're on Instagram and TikTok @TAFulltime. Make sure you're following us there. This is more of an ongoing conversation. We just like to take a chance every few months in a season to actually answer the questions like we're doing in this episode, and which we're going to dive into after this break.
With the NWSL season in full swing, the action on the pitch has been absolutely relentless. Between tracking the table standings and planning watch parties, life moves fast. When sudden match day plans pop up, you can't afford to be caught flat-footed. That's why Amazon Prime is an absolute game changer. It lets you say yes to the moments that matter most without missing kickoff. Need new fanware before a massive rivalry match? Some last-minute pitchside gear for your weekend league? Or just a massive snack delivery because the whole crew is coming over before the broadcast? Prime has you covered. Because it's not just about getting things fast, it's about making sure you're ready for 90 minutes plus stoppage time, completely stress-free. Same-day delivery, it's on Prime. Available in select areas, terms apply. Go to Amazon.com/Prime to find millions of items delivered fast so you're always match day ready. Now, let's get you back to the show. Welcome back. It is time now to open that summer mailbag bag, and we are starting hot and heavy. Amanda wrote in because she noticed that while watching the 2026 Men's World Cup that there were a lot, Meg and Tamerra, of betting ads, including for Kalshi, a prediction market book taker. Her question was, is the women's game missing out on advertising opportunities by having less presence in the sports betting landscape? What would it mean if there were increased partnerships with sports betting and leagues like the NWSL? Would that take away from anything in the women's game? For example, the sense of community and connection rather than stats rather, and making a quick buck. How do we feel about sports betting in the women's game?
I am very anti. And part of that, too, is I've read now both a few articles, but there's a really great sports betting book. I'll post the link to it maybe after this episode drops that really just dives into the history of sports betting and what that has opened up, and just kind of Kalshi in particular stresses me out to an absurd degree. And I actually remember being in New York City in that week leading up to the World Cup final and looking up, and it was Clint Dempsey in an ad for Kalshi. And so I think there is a sense of, it always opens up questions about integrity of the game, right? We've seen NBA betting scandals come through and all that kind of fun stuff. But like, I think there would be one very specific pro for two very specific pros for the NWSL if this were to get opened up. One is it is an insane cash flow, right? And that's like a blessing and a curse. But two, we would actually have better information around stats and all, like the information level for the NWSL as it exists right now is completely not good enough for sports betting. So you would at least get better stats and better information, better injury reports. Coaches wouldn't be able to lie about injury reports anymore because it's too important for sports betting. But I don't think it's worth it. It stresses me out. And I think also it invites such a level of abuse onto the athletes when someone doesn't hit a parlay, right? Like it just opens up a door that I don't think needs to be opened.
I agree. I mean, talking about sports betting makes me feel the same way I feel when I talk about AI, which, but also a sense of inevitability. And it raises that question that I honestly, maybe to my own detriment, try not to even engage in, that I'm glad you touched on, Meg, which is like, one, but what if? And two, how could it be incorporated in a way that at least brings about some good to it? So to your point about, being able to improve the crumbs that we're currently working with when it comes to data in the women's game, that is objectively a huge plus. But as with most technological advancements and nuances, it comes with the cost. And I think whenever this kind of thing is introduced or potentially introduced into the women's game, you do have that question of ethics. And as Amanda pointed out in the question, there's always going to be some tension between, the foundational roots of women's sports and how that might interact or not with these new business opportunities. So also anti, but know that I personally am going to have to get to a point where I start imagining what it might look like, because it feels like it's coming whether we want it to or not.
I think in some level it's inevitable in any sport, and I'm not for or against it. I think that if I'm going to play devil's advocate to the conversation, sports betting in any league I'm not saying it is a smart way or the right way, but it is a way to get other people interested, other sets of eyeballs when their money is involved. I think about my coworkers who are former European soccer players and have no idea what's going on in the NFL. But there is an NFL office pool floating around, and they want to get involved. Now, could they name a quarterback? No, but it gets them interested in the league. Now, are those the fans that we're going to sit here and say, that's who we want watching the women's game?
Yeah, that to me is the
Right.
question.
But it does add that. Now, do we need it? Is it needed? I don't know that. But that is another side to this whole thing.
I think, to your point, Jill, that's a reason why I think the NWSL front office would be looking at it as a potential move, right? For a league that is so obsessed with finding new ways and new inroads to groups of fans and sports fans in general that they have yet to unlock. Sports betting is a very tempting path to walk down, and that's exactly why I'm so nervous about it, right? Because I just also think, like, this country has really yet to reckon with its obsession with sports betting. And honestly, I think what it has done to a generation of young male sports fans in particular. And so I think there is something really, I mean, it's a fascinating conversation when it comes to how women's sports, for the most part, have danced around this as an issue. But I do think it is a conversation that's going to become a lot more pressing over the next few years, because it's going to be really hard to resist both that money and the attention economy that comes with sports betting.
Amanda, thanks for the question. She used the word slippery slope, and I think we are all in agreement there. All right, let's go on to our next question. This one comes from Kay, and the headline is, does the U.S. women's national team need more competitive games and or tournaments? Kay writes in, quote, love the show. I've had a question about the U.S. women's national team and the tournaments. It seems like other federations have fairly regular tournaments that mean something outside of the World Cup and the Olympics. But the U.S. has been in no real tournaments besides She Believes, which is a friendly, and like 2 games since the Olympics. Even World Cup qualifiers, they now get to skip the group stage, just play 3 games max to the final. Do you think this hurts them in any way compared to the teams who are experiencing the pressure and pace of tournaments more regularly? I feel like the U.S. played in more tournaments during the previous cycle, and this go around, there's almost nothing. Kay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest comp where you see this disparity most prominently is in Europe, right? Because now they have UEFA Nations League, and it's like those girls are always trying to qualify for something through the Nations League, whether it's Women's Euros, Olympics, or the World Cup. I mean, that's 3 years right there. And when I made that connection, I was just like, okay, because Kay might be thinking of the U.S.-Netherlands game from a couple of years ago, or when the U.S. made what felt like it might have become an annual trip to Wembley at the end of the season, you know? Those were such important matches for obvious reasons. Being able to play against top 10 competition anytime, especially away, is invaluable. Now, I will say this year has been refreshing, and I credit a lot of that to U.S. Women's National Team head coach Emma Hayes, because we're just past the midway point of the year, and already the U.S. has played Japan 3 times. They played Brazil twice in Brazil, which is something that has not happened in a couple of decades outside of major competitions. And those, I mean, goes without saying how important those games were. So I actually asked Emma Hayes about that ahead of the Brazil friendlies, and it does sound like there could be a little bit more collaboration between U.S. Soccer and NWSL potentially to change that, because the simple answer to the question, Kay, is I do think that the U.S. is losing out by not being able to match the level of competition that they have in their international friendlies compared to what we see in Europe. And it's going to be really interesting to see if or how that plays out in 2027, given the U.S. qualifies.
I mean, 2026 is probably one of the strongest years the U.S. women's national team is going to have in terms of strength of opponent, right? Because to Tamerra's point, Japan, Brazil, Spain is coming up in October. Like, these are your 3 primary competitors in my books for the next World Cup. So 2026 is actually not that much of a problem. It is actually, to me, a CONCACAF issue more than a U.S. women's soccer problem, because UEFA, I think, is a lot more structured, right? And that's part of the problem why the U.S. has not been able to schedule games, is because, to your point, Tamerra, UEFA is busy all the time doing something. and just playing with each other and not, we're good. We don't need to go anywhere. But Spain is out, is qualified. So like they're freed up for those October games. So CONCACAF, I think, is more preoccupied with teams outside of USA, Canada, and Mexico and how to get them more meaningful games, especially around big competitions. And so that's why the US, yes, they're going to have to go through World Cup qualifying basically through a single game because CONCACAF isn't worried about them. So that to me that's where the problem is CONCACAF and not necessarily US soccer.
So in a nutshell, is it a yes or a no that we would need more competitive matches in general? I think we're in agreement that this year they've done a good job figuring it out. I don't know if there would be like a global Nations League of sorts. The next Gold Cup isn't scheduled until 2029.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. But yeah, I like the idea of putting pressure, honestly.
To be fair, I do think like Emma Hayes wants that too. Like it's a known issue. I'll put it that way.
Okay, let's move on to the U.S. Women's National Team roster. Thanks, Kay. Quinn asks, as Emma starts thinking seriously about that 2027 World Cup roster, what do you think Kat Macario, Lynn Biondolo, and now Emily Sonnet will have to do to make that team? Emily Sonnet now out, not officially, but the injury to your patella is 6 to 12 months, which obviously is really tough when there's a World Cup in 10 months. Lynn Biondolo coming back from her maternity leave, and Kat Macario kind of continuing to sit out in San Diego and nurse this injury.
Ooh.
I guess, you know what? I'll pose this question with Quinn. Who do we think of those three has the best chance of being on the plane in 2027?
I mean, to me, that's Kat Macario. And that's also with a complete information void. It feels like about what Kat Macario.
Maybe that's why we're saying Kat Macario, because we don't know.
For Lynn Biondolo, I think part of it too is you look at the last couple rosters that she made, and she was basically the last player across the line, right? And so I think the depth chart has changed in her absence. So I think for her, there is a real journey to get back into this team. With Emily Sonnet, to be fair, we do not know what that injury return is going to be like, but I think you can't do a one-to-one comparison against Mal Swanson, who had essentially the same injury, because Mal Swanson also had like a septic infection after, which really set back her rehab and went through an off season, although Sonnet will go through an off season.
Mal's was 10 months just to know when all is, including that infection. So she ended at 10 months from game to game.
Right. So I mean, like, I don't want to rule out Emily Sonnet, also because I think she is one of the key veteran voices for Emma Hayes with this U.S. Women's National Team. But I do think that there is still potentially something intangible about Kat Macario being in Brazil for a World Cup, and right at the moment has, in theory, a faster path back probably to more significant games and just getting back in form and, being in camp right at the moment, assuming that this injury somehow resolves itself. But yeah, she is just kind of a giant question mark right at the moment.
And for Kat, it has been this ongoing heel injury. Yeah, in the past she had knee irritation after the ACL tear in 2022, etc. But this has been this like elusive heel injury that she came over to San Diego with, and now we're sitting here still in August, and that seems to be the source of the sidelining.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because the thing that I see Kat Macario and Emily Sonnet having in common is their centrality to this U.S. Women's National Team core. But of course, Kat, in theory, as far as we know, she's a little bit further along, or a lot further along in her recovery than Emily Sonnet, who just picked that up a couple of weeks ago. And then what Kat and Lynn have in common is that distance from the initial thing that took them off of the pitch, whether it was pregnancy or the heel injury, to now. But Lynn, as you mentioned, Meg, hasn't been quite as central as Kat was when she was healthy last year. And I mean, she was the U.S. Women's National Team top goal scorer in 2025. So I agree. I do find it a bit worrying how little we're even in terms of whispers of her coming back to the Wave, let alone the U.S. women's national team. So this, second half of the season really is, that question is, turning from like a regular black question mark into a kind of red one, or the kind that you like outline over and over out of stress for me. But let's see, the Wave are in a good spot in the table, so I can see them wanting to allow her as much time as possible. But from a U.S. women's national team perspective, it's like, do you really want to wait until the start of next season? I don't know. But still, she's in the front of that line among those three players for me too.
Listener Matt Solomon emailed in the perfect follow-up to this whole conversation, which was, what's going to happen in central defense now that Emily Sonnet will sadly be out for a while? Is Naomi Girma ready to play? Who would slot in next to Tierna Davidson? If not, also he threw in there, has Croy played herself back into the squad? Thanks, Matt. Some good food for thought there from Matt.
Yeah, my cheeks are full. So I'm going to take this opportunity to invoke the name of Utah Royals center back Kate Delfava, who I think is having like an MVP candidate level season. She was most recently called up, not to the senior U.S. women's national team, but the U23s, who also traveled to and played in Brazil. They played against local Brazilian teams, not the national team the way the senior team did. And this, of course, was before the Sonnet injury. So I am really curious what that center back depth chart looks like right now, considering, if we're to assume that Tara Rudd is still there, considering that Kennedy Wesley is Emily Sams, another player that the conundrum of Emily Sams on the U.S. women's national team. Can't talk enough about that. And we also haven't, the WSL season is starting in a couple of weeks, which is really exciting. And of course, will give us some answers to the Naomi Girma question. But I think for now, based on if we're sort of just to take the last window and that roster that went to Brazil, alongside Tierna, I'm thinking if not Naomi, right now it's probably Kennedy Wesley. But of course, you're going to want to bring one or two, maybe more center backs, or at least a sort of fluid player like a Sams, who's been known to be employed on the outside as a fullback under Emma Hayes. But what do you think, Meg?
I do feel like Tara Rudd a year ago would have been the obvious answer, right? Like, this is the thing, is she's floated through a lot of different combos. And also now we're at the point in the year where, or in the cycle really, where you should have a locked center back pairing. And that's the opposite of where this team is going. So, in many ways, I feel like this team is now blessed that Tierna Davidson is fully back and can be sort of that sort of through line of a defense for the U.S. women's national team. But I don't know if there is a really clear answer right at the moment. And I do think Naomi Girma is the very hopeful pencil in answer. She's on the plane to Australia, or was, a day ago, with Chelsea. And so I do think there's at least some time to figure out before even the Spain games, I think, is where we're truly going to get an answer to this question.
Tara, to back up your case for Delfava, she's been an Iron Woman. When we're talking about all these players with injuries, are they ready? Will they be fully fit? This is somebody who is played every single minute for the Utah Royals since they came back into the NWSL 2024, 2025, and she's on pace to do the same this year. So, hey, things can happen, but she's consistent.
And she scores goals.
She's consistent.
Yeah. We do love an attacking center back.
We do.
Wild.
Yeah. And as for Croy, yes? I feel like...
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry, Matt.
I'm
shaking my head yes to Croy Bethune.
Yeah. I feel like that's and Croy does at least, I think, provide some coverage if Kat Macario, right, is not ready. There is this sort of, I think, little weird clump of players, a Croy, Kat Macario, Jaden Shaw, right, who are all kind of in a very similar bucket for Emma. And so it is kind of a who's got next? Who's ready? Who's in form? And so that, to me, feels like the current sort of competition, even though Macario's position, she can play multiple. So It's kind of, like, and they all, I think, can kind of play any sort of central attacking role. So,
All right, next up, we've got Maddie with a real zinger, short and sweet. Quote, I love this. Is Trinity Rodman overrated, underrated, or rated just right?
It's interesting because I feel like if we got this question at the start of the season, which, she was coming back from an injury, which was on full display even in the championship last year,
Yes.
um, I probably would have had a different answer. But I think given that she is ostensibly, for all intents and purposes, the face of the NWSL, she's rated just right now. Like, she is actually, and in ways that I think might not always be super obvious because she's also playing for an extremely in-form Washington Spirit where most of her teammates are firing on all cylinders and having, incredible seasons. But 18 appearances, 8 goals, and 5 assists this year, which is incredible. I think she's feeling it, and Trinity Rodman, I think, is the kind of player who is at her best when she's feeling it, when she's enjoying her football, as they like to say. I wouldn't say that she's underrated just because the rate of Trinity Rodman has always been extremely high. And it's been really nice to see her game and her performance is actually aligned with the sort of vessel that the NWSL created with her vis-a-vis the HIP that we ended the year with and started this calendar year with.
Yeah, I definitely think it's just right. And I think part of that too is she has had to, I wouldn't say reinvent herself, but adapt her game following that injury, and the fact that she has figured out how to do that. And I think that she has found other levels to climb into during a game rather than just relying on sheer, like the trin spin, right, to get her out of situations, to me means she is a truly elite player who deserves the reputation that she has.
And to back up Tamerra's numbers that you mentioned, the 8 goals, 5 assists in 18 appearances, that is tied for the co-lead in the NWSL in goal contributions. Barbara Banda is tied at 13 as well, but hers are 12 goals and 1 assist. Rodman is on pace to have a career season. 8 goals would be her career max. She had it back in 2024. She just had 1 more assist. She had 6 assists in 23 appearances, and Rodman's got another couple months to go to add that in. So yes, Rodman is on pace for a career season after making those record numbers in terms of money. All right, let's move on now to injuries/free agency. This question comes from our friend Ross. Ross messaged in to say, in the NFL, it is common to see impending free agents sit out games to avoid getting injured without a contract. In the NWSL, you have players like Sophia Wilson, Rose Lavelle, who do not have contracts in place for 2027. Lavelle is 31, playing some of the best ball of her life and likely signing her last big deal in the league. Wilson's 25, has a whole bunch of options in front of her. Both were on the field when Emily Sonnet tore her patella tendon this weekend, and I cannot help but wonder what Rose is thinking when this could happen to her at any time, and she still has no contract going into next year. Meg, given this is a new era for the NWSL with this CBA, seems really risky, and I wonder how it affects veteran players who still haven't signed. What do you say to our friend Ross?
First of all, I just don't think that's how players operate in general. Like, I don't, you can get hurt at any time, right? And I also do kind of fundamentally disagree with the premise that Roosevelt's only got 1 major contract left. I don't know if there's any sign of that in the near future, because also knowing that NWSL values veteran players in a way that maybe they always shouldn't, but especially with, expansion teams coming in, there's potential there for something to happen. But I do think the other main point that I would make around this conversation is, well, you don't know if they have a contract yet for next year. The conversations are ongoing all of the time. It could be trending in one direction and it's just not across the line yet. But B, you're playing in the NWSL for more than just your NWSL club. You're playing to stay in form for U.S. Women's National Team games. And that is the real key point to me, right? Like, I think we always think about NWSL games and like praying that people don't get hurt ahead of international duty, or the other way around, that you're praying that people don't get hurt during games and then going back to NWSL clubs hurt. But it could happen at any time. So I just don't know if that's the right way of looking at it through this lens.
I think so too. I appreciate the illustration of that moment at that Providence Park game between Gotham and Thorns. And honestly, I'm redirecting your question a bit, Ross, to sort of announce that I am joining the Roman Empire question of when or will Providence Park put some grass on that stadium? Because we could even extend the sort of injury history or historical context of that pitch further. That was also the game that Morgan Weaver returned after tearing her ACL. Midge Purce had an injury on that field at Providence Park. And when I think about the potential of Providence Park to maybe host some 2031 World Cup games and what that would require. That's what I am thinking about in that illustration that you presented with your question. But yeah, I agree with Meg. NFL, as much as Commissioner Berman might want. Comparisons to NWSL are a slippery slope. Totally different priorities, different landscapes, and
different money,
different
right?
money.
Like, I think it's a really hard one-to-one. And the Portland grass question, I think, is a really important one, right? Because also the Men's World Cup forced that in a lot of stadiums for the NWSL anyway this summer.
Yeah.
Portland, in particular, is now a very, I almost said thorny issue, so we'll just roll with it. But
cute.
They are now tenants of that building, right? Mm-hmm. So it's got to be a Timbers/City of Portland decision, and that I think is going to make it just. I don't think it's going to happen, at least anytime soon.
Oof.
So it's tough.
Tragic.
It's just a tough situation. Yeah.
If Providence Park had grass, that would be one of the few stadia in North America that I would have absolutely no notes for. Zero. Not a note. Not
right.
A note.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is already, it's so close to a perfect stadium. And I just also think that I want to say I read something about there's like a culvert or something, like they've built over something that would make it really hard to maintain a natural grass pitch on top of it. I mean, I don't think it's impossible, but just it would probably be a wild investment for a permanent decision. And so it's really tough because that stadium is, like, to me, that's NWSL heritage in every single way.
Yeah.
So
platonic ideal. Nearly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to this question from Emily. This is about the Utah Royals. Talk about a little U-turn. With Utah, are we seeing the benefits of letting a head coach get settled despite not making the playoffs? Waiting things out for Jimmy Conrads is paying off. As a Royals fan, not even I could have predicted being near the top. Oh my gosh, so disrespectful.
The Freudian slip of it all, though.
I know.
To Emily's point.
Yeah, me too, Emily. Near the top of the table. Additionally, should Angel City follow Utah and actually stick with a coach? We were having this conversation off camera, off mic the other day amongst ourselves about Jimmy and the fact that he is 31 years old. And he comes into this job at 29, and he's given a little bit of time. And look at what the Royals have done.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the time, Utah was dealing with so many injuries. And it's weird like what I'm about to say is going to sound a bit absurd, but I do wonder if, in addition to the implication of Emily's question about giving a manager time to get settled in, I also wonder if the context of having these big name signings like Chloe Lacasse, who is red hot right now.
Coming off a 3-assist game.
A hat trick of assists. That Utah-Portland game. Girl. Yeah. Anyway, but she was dealing with an ACL injury when she first arrived at Utah. And so I do wonder if, in addition, perhaps, to Utah's front office wanting to let Jimmy get settled, there was also a little bit of more grace given how many injuries they were dealing with. And I remember before this NWSL season started, one of our talking points was, can Utah actually continue the momentum that they tend to finish their seasons with into the start of the season. We're seeing what that looks like. They don't tend to make a ton of splashy signings. And I do wonder how much the sort of lifestyle component of the Utah Royals sell affects that, especially for players who are coming from, I don't know, Madrid, Paris, all of these, beautiful, beautiful European cities with struggling
Salt
club
Lake's
teams.
nice. Salt Lake's nice.
They have dirty soda,
It's pretty.
Tamerra.
Dirty soda. I mean, how do you compete with that? Sangria could never. But I do think that, and we also talk a lot about the high turnover that we have seen in the NWSL of head coaches. So I do think that Utah, for all of the shock that even its own supporters are experiencing right now with their successful season, could be a testament to just trusting the process. It's been really interesting and honestly very fun. It's been a minute. Well, maybe not so much, but maybe. I mean, I'm thinking of like the worst to first sort of storylines that we've seen with like Kansas City Current.
Yeah, Gotham,
but this still
also
feels
Orlando
different.
too, right? Like it has some Orlando vibes maybe to me, of like Orlando being this team where you could see the building blocks in place, and then it really took, like one breakout year for it to all go right. But for me, it's yes, giving a coach time to actually have time with players and to figure out what they want to be. But I also think, yeah, we talked about Utah always finishing seasons really strong and like being the spoiler to every other single team on the table. But part of that too is this was a team that I think everybody thought should play better than what they were playing for the most part, right? And then you would see it come together for these little spells. And so to put together what is currently looking like could be a really complete season, especially, you think about that Portland Thorns result. I think it's a whole bunch of things coming together, but yes, giving a head coach actual time with players feels like it's a useful thing in general.
So I loved what Emily threw in there at the end, and this is where I want to end this question with the two of you. Should
Right.
Angel City follow? And I'm sure Angel City's not loving to take some directive from Utah, but should Angel City be following in the Utah Royals' footsteps? Imagine putting that in a letter and sending it to Angel City ownership. Like, you guys should be more like Utah.
Right. I mean, I don't think Angel City has intended to have the
Yeah.
My mind is blanking. The revolving door of managers that they've had. I mean, I personally was really surprised to see Strauss leave, even with the form that Angel City was in, just because there had been so much talk about, and continues to be about, 5 and 7 year plans that we hear from sporting director Mark Parsons. That team needs some consistency. And I'm not even really sure what the vision is right now. And I think that sometimes that is directly reflected in the results. But I mean, the fact that they are just so up and down still, I don't know if the plan is to sort of try and revive things for the rest of the season, or if they're just starting to plan already for 2027, which doesn't seem advisable. But yeah, they need some consistency for sure. That's all I have to say about Angel City right now, I'm afraid.
Meg, yes,
I won't
or,
even wade in.
yes
I won't
or
even
no?
wade into it. I mean, but yes, I do think, and this is what they keep saying, right? Is that they will hire a head coach and then be like, "This is our answer,"
Yeah.
and we will give them time, and then that's not what happens. So at one point, they do have to finally like live by that promise and give a head coach some time, even though it might be painful. Like, it was certainly painful for Utah. Like, no one in Utah is going to say that wasn't painful.
Right.
So
Yeah. Imagine being Jimmy Conrads, who gets there in 2024. Chloe Lacasse, who Tamerra brilliantly brought up, scores a hat trick in her 8th game for the Royals and then tears her ACL in her 9th game. And they weather that storm and they stick with their manager, and they are sitting in 3rd place in the NWSL standings and even had a 10-game unbeaten streak earlier this year. All right, let's move on now to Benjamin's question. He asks, does it seem like the NWSL has been watered down by expansion a bit this season? when WSL fans are talking about using the NWSL to develop young English players who can't get into the WSL, and so many top NWSL prospects jump to Europe at the first chance they get, it feels like the wrong trajectory. Now, just, quick numbers here. The NWSL is set to expand in 2028 to 18 teams. That would enter Atlanta. That would enter Columbus as well. And the WSL sits at 14 teams. Meg, what's your reaction to Benjamin's question?
I mean, my short answer is yes. Like, that is just the nature of expansion, is that generally. And to be fair, I think expansion maybe has not necessarily watered down the NWSL, but I think it has maybe undone some of the words about parity a little bit, just in terms of like we're relying on star power in the US a little bit more, or like these really top heavy rosters. So like my instinct is to agree, but I also think the point about WSL talent coming over slash American talent going over there, that's a separate conversation that does actually feel kind of unrelated to the sort of existential questions around expansion and what it does to the quality of a league. But I mean, this is why I think expansion is an issue, but also, and to be fair, we got a question about Racing Louisville that was not in the show simply because this is an ongoing situation that, trust me, I think everybody is very aware of. But like, you have both expansion and then teams that just aren't serious, right? And that's where we're seeing this kind of like watered down nature. And we have more parity this season than compared to, KC or Orlando running away with it over the past couple of years. But I don't always know that like NWSL chaos equals parity. So there's a lot going on here. I think this is a question that actually like is going to sit in the back of my brain for like a month, and then like a month later I'm going to have something really good to say about it. But right now my instinct is mostly like I for the most part agree with you that the NWSL feels watered down in a way.
All right, Benjamin, so keep your ears out for that when Meg has part two of that
process.
Part two of that answer. Process. That means you asked the right question, Benjamin. All right, let's move on now. Friend of the show, Courtney, is talking NWSL dark horse. All right, here's the question. Which team in the bottom 4 of the standings can make a run to the playoffs? Tamerra, at the very bottom of the table, we have 16th place Chicago Stars sitting 11 points back. Then after that, it goes Racing Louisville, Bay FC, and the Houston Dash in 13th.
This is a bit of a boring answer because they're at the top of the bottom 4, but Houston might be able to do the thing. I think that for all of the challenges that they have faced this season, I mean, let's not forget how they started the season, first of all. Remember when Houston played Angel City and it was like number 1 versus number 2 or something kind of unimaginable right now? They did have a strong start. I don't think we should forget that. I also think that Houston did a really brilliant job recruiting some top NCAA talent into their team. I think players like Kat Rader have been really impressive, have scored some bangers. The fact that Kiki Van Zanten is back from injury, I think is going to be a huge boost to them. Always having Jane Campbell between the sticks is good security. I think that it's going to be difficult, of course, because when I look at the top half, the players who are currently in playoff contention, if the season were to end now, I think a lot of those teams are also trending upward. But I do feel most hopeful between these 4 teams about the Dash at the moment.
Houston did win their first 2 games of 2026, went 1-0 through those first 4 weeks, and they have won just twice since then. So we'll see what this final third of the season holds for the Houston Dash. Moving on to our final question, this one from Mike. Okay. What is the best or funniest result you've gotten from American Soccer Analysis's road to 75 game?
Yeah. So first of all, I should say I've forced everyone into this.
Yeah, we need some context here.
I was happy to be forced.
It's basically, there's I don't know if anyone else has played the 82-0, the NBA spinner game, which is also a real addiction for me. But it's basically, there's an automatic generator that gives you a year and a team. So 2025 KC, right? Or 2024 Orlando, whatever it is. If you're unlucky, you get 2017 Breakers, which is one that I seem to get at an absurd hit rate. And then you have to pick 11 players, goalkeeper, and then you can choose your formation. You then get an option of 3 head coaches to pick from, and then it simulates a season. And so the mission is to earn 75 points and win the NWSL championship. I have spent too much time playing this. I have only maxed out at 73 points, and then I was out in the semifinals. I'll be mad at the Denver Summit for that forever, even though it didn't actually happen. And yeah, but you also get this crazy lineup where for that team, I think I had Tamerra Chawinga, Barbara Banda, and Midge Purse as my front line.
Love it.
Who wouldn't want to see it?
Right. Yeah, I am not. This is not even the type of game that a gamer would own, but I don't play soccer games. I watch soccer games, but I don't play games like this. So this was very new territory for me. I was asking Meg extremely 101 questions about how it all worked. Okay, so if I choose 2022 Kate Del Fava, that means that it's not 2026 Kate Del Fava, right? Well, I'm picking her anyway. And it was educational. And it was also sometimes, depending on the roster that you got, a nice walk down memory lane where it's oh my God, I forgot when Ali Long was in form with Sky Blue or whatever, So there's a lot to process as you're going through this. I personally found the wait process as the game takes you through the season after you've made your picks extremely anxiety inducing. I would rather just watch the games than tell me, what the results are. I only played once though, but I won the championship. I finished second. My team was the Fresno Flex. Shout out Lindy and Dolo, Fresno native. But I only got 56 points out of the 75. So it's I won, but not really.
Yeah. No, it's
I
definitely
feel interested
addicting.
and confused at the same
Yeah,
time. And are
same.
you calling Meg a gamer?
No,
no.
I'm so not a gamer that anytime I
sitting there
encounter a game,
doing Call of Duty.
No.
I am absolutely not that person.
Any type of game is what gamers play in my mind. That's how far I am from that world. So sorry, real gamers out there.
I do think if people are playing it, I will say after I posted it, everybody's kind of been sending me their results, so it's been really enjoyable to watch. But I think we could have a little full-time best of round over this week. So if you manage to get 75 points and win the championship, let us know. We want to see that team. We want to see what this hypothetical bananas perfect NWSL squad is. It would be fun.
All right. Thanks for that, Mike. As I said, I'm interested and confused. To close out the show today, it is time for this week's Speed Round, sponsored by Amazon Prime. Tamerra, you have the floor. The time is yours. The question is from Blue Hootie. Who is in your WAFCON 5-a-side draft, please? I will time you.
Okay. Let me know when to start.
60 seconds, Tamerra Griffin. Are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be. You guys know I struggle with these timed deliveries, but let's go.
Go.
All right. Starting from back to front, which I think is going to be really fun because I have chosen Senegalese goalkeeper / striker Adji Njaye, who at the U20 level was an incredible striker and has been just as impressive as Senegal's number 2, who became number 1 goalkeeper. I don't know if you watched their last group game because they are not advancing in WAFCON against Morocco, but Njaye saved a penalty. Technically twice. The first time she jumped off her line, but that's goalkeeper.
Name more players, Tamerra. Name more players.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Defender, we have Nouhaila Benzina from Morocco. She is so safe. She makes me feel so safe back there. Midfielders, Grace Ruth Seri from Cote d'Ivoire, Qatar Asraf from Morocco. I got time. Forwards, Tamerra Chawinga, of course. And from Ghana, Doris Bodwa, who's scored a couple goals for Ghana. Manager, Reynald Pedros. Ivory Coast.
Ding, ding, ding. And she did it with 1 second to spare, people.
I like the sound effect. That was not too bad because I just had to name 6 people, but I just had to give Njaye her flowers because if you watch that game,
It's legit.
My gosh. San Diego
Also,
obviously a lot of history there, too.
It's your time. You are 100% entitled to disperse it how you see fit.
Goalkeepers don't get enough love as it is. You know?
That's fair. All right. This week's Speed Round is sponsored by Amazon Prime. Same-day delivery. It's on Prime, available in select areas, and terms apply. Thank you so much for sending in all of your questions to make this week's episode so chaotic and so fun. Hopefully, we got to as many as we could, we promise. But keep sending them in. We keep track of them. We try to answer them throughout the show. You can always reach us at fulltime@theathletic.com, or you can shoot us a DM on Instagram or on one of our accounts. We're at TA Fulltime. If you're not already following us, again, it is at TA Fulltime.
Yes, and if you didn't know, The Athletic has partnered with Yahoo Sports to deliver free best-in-class coverage of women's sports. As you know, there is never a dull moment on our side of the world, and we're always having the best time. Make sure you read our stories at the Women's Sports Hub at sports.yahoo.com/women-sports.
All right, that does it for our summer mailbag today. Thank you to everybody who took the time not only to listen to this episode, but to write us in. I'm Jillian Sakovits. That is Tamerra Griffin. That is Meg Linehan. As always, Fulltime was produced by Theo Lloyd Hughes. For more coverage, just head over to theathletic.com.